Imagine for a moment that everything you know about yourself is incomplete. It's not wrong, just broken, like a device making strange noises because it is receiving a frequency it can't understand. What if I told you there was a part of you that no one ever saw? The part that acts silently, that acts when you are vulnerable, that disguises itself as logical thought, but is really pure focused emotion. Now listen carefully. It is not in your past, future, or another dimension. He is there now. I breathe with you. I am looking, acting when you don't feel like it. Nikola Tesla said, "If you want to understand the mysteries of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." But what almost no one knows is that this same principle applies to the most forgotten secret of existence. That secret is you. Because before you can understand the outer universe, you must understand the inner universe. And this inner universe, even though it appears quiet, holds within itself a forgotten realm, an energy field that almost everyone ignores, but which affects everything. We call it shadow. But forget for a moment about the shadow being a scary or bad thing. In this context, the term does not mean darkness as opposed to light. Here, darkness refers to something that has not yet been revealed, something that has never been seen before. This shadow is not some demon locked inside you. It is the sum of all the things you have suppressed to survive. Desires, anger, fear, trauma, attraction. Everything that was once rejected by you, by society, by your own history, and which now survives as a kind of suppressed but extremely active emotional intelligence. This feeling arises when you harm yourself without any reason, when it explodes and then you regret it, when you feel guilty for being healthy or ashamed for being bad, when you realize that there is something inside you that reacts before you have time to think. Have you ever wondered why this happens? You might think this is a weakness or lack of discipline or personality flaws, but this is not true at all. It is simply stored energy vibrating in a field you have never learned to interpret. Tesla intuitively understood that the human mind is like a receiver. We pick up thoughts, feelings, and even vibrations that are beyond the visible. And he said that many of our thoughts are not ours. They are like frequencies passing through us. Now imagine what happens if you hold these frequencies with an internal system full of disorganized trauma. You become a chaotic zone, and this chaos begins to rule your life. But it's not your fault. No one taught you to recognize your shadow. Nobody told you that ignoring the pain changes it. When you suppress an impulse, it doesn't go away. It simply reorganizes and comes back in a different form. More camouflage, more destructive, more important. Have you ever noticed that some decisions seem inevitable, even though you know they will harm you? How come some relationships repeat themselves despite so many promises of change? How do certain patterns of behavior become emotional addictions that you return to when you feel insecure? There's a shadow working there, like intelligent energy that just wants to be heard, not to overpower you, but to reintegrate you. Let us return to the field of consciousness, to heal, or rather, to reconnect with wholeness. Tesla believed that we are all pieces of a unified field, but when we ignore certain parts of ourselves, we are no longer a harmonious field and become noise. Inconsistency, pain. The shadow is the inner noise you try to suppress with logic, religion, superficial spirituality, goals, productivity, therapy. But he's still there, because you can't rule out something you don't yet understand. You can only change what you see with truth. And maybe that's why you're here now, because you are beginning to realize that there is something inside you that needs attention, something that calls to you in the silence of the night, in this nameless worry. In the sadness that suddenly arises in moments of peace, feeling like something is wrong even when everything seems fine. This is not madness, this is emerging clarity. This shadow energy is manifesting itself. This is the moment when the unconscious mind begins to reveal itself with greater force, because it is tired of being ignored. And the more you deny it, the more destructive it becomes. But it becomes an obsession, but it becomes an existential crisis. The deep shadow inside you doesn't want you to be destroyed. She wants your perfection, but it's scary. Because to accept the shadow, you have to give up the idea that it is just light. You have to accept that you have anger, jealousy, need, desire, pride inside you. And you need to understand that this does not make you any less spiritual. It makes you more human. And the gist of it is this: the more you attempt to deny your humanity in the name of idealized spirituality, the louder your shadow will scream. but she's finding ways to be visible. But this disrupts your normal routine and causes symptoms that you cannot ignore. You can call it drama, hormones, midlife crisis, subtle hell. Or you can start really listening. See how this all ties together? Tesla said, "What one person calls God, another person calls the laws of physics." And perhaps your shadow is just a manifestation of a mental law that needs to be understood. It absolutely works. She reacts to stimuli. He is looking for balance. But you need to focus on this frequency. The shadow is the part of you that holds the codes your soul needs to decipher. And you are very close to understanding. But be careful. There is a point of no return. Once you start seeing the shadow, you can't pretend it doesn't exist. You may even try to return to your comfort zone, to the world of appearances, of forced smiles and automatic habits. But something has already awakened inside you, and then you won't be able to sleep. So the question that arises now is not how to control your shadow, but are you ready to overcome it? Because this is the beginning of the real work. And if you've come this far, it's because there's something inside you that has already started to dive. However, the journey has just begun. And what happens next will show you why extreme emotions have never been a mistake, but on the contrary, the key. And now that you've opened the first door, get ready, because in the next part, you will understand what really happens to people who see too much, feel too much, and live in a world that prefers silence. We find ourselves in the next impulse. Have you ever felt like something about you is too much? Do you feel too much, understand too much, care too much? Do you always feel stressed out, even if you try to appear calm? You could try to explain it as sensitivity, but this is not all. This is something deeper. Tesla understood this with astonishing clarity. The human mind and body are senders and receivers, and some people pick up frequencies that most people ignore. Imagine that you live in a quiet town, but you're the only person who hears a persistent buzzing sound coming from underground. No matter how distracted you are, the sound continues. And since no one listens to you anymore, you start to think that you are the problem. Now, replace this excitement with emotions. Internal sensations that arise for no apparent reason. Sudden discomfort during conversation. The sadness that comes when everything is going well. The desire to get away from everyone, even though you love those around you. This is not madness, this is overload. You pay attention to patterns, intentions, emotional atmosphere, and over time it starts to get tiring because your brain doesn't filter information like others do. She absorbs. What happens when something absorbs more than it can hold? Material. And that's exactly what's happening to you. Even if you don't know what to call it yet, you are emotionally charged. And saturation has no face. It doesn't unfold in any predictable way. Sometimes this manifests as anxiety, others such as indifference. Sometimes it takes the form of anger, impatience, silence. Have you ever noticed how the smallest of things can have a huge impact on you over the course of a few days? The message was ignored, the angry tone of the voice, a misinterpreted term, and suddenly it seems like the whole world is against you. But in reality, the world hasn't changed. It's your system that's going overboard. Tesla knew that any circuit, no matter how well built, would fail if the load exceeded its limits. And the human mind is also a chain, but nobody taught you this. Nobody told you that you had to learn to shoulder the burden. Will be released, creating space for inner silence against. You have learned to be patient, smiling, to say that everything is fine when everything is about to collapse. Keep working even when it doesn't make sense. You have created mechanisms to avoid collapse. And that is what separates you from yourself. One of them is emotional detachment. You withdraw into yourself, become distant, and avoid deep conversations. Not because you don't want to communicate, but because you're afraid to say something in the middle of a sentence. You are afraid that if someone touches the wound, everything you have suppressed inside you for years will come out in an instant. Another mechanism is chronic anxiety. You fill every minute of your day with tasks, stuff, obligations. Not because he is driven, but because he is afraid of silence. Because in silence, you listen. And my hearing gets worse. You find yourself acting on automatic. I'm constantly scrolling through feeds on my phone, eating without feeling hungry, drink without being thirsty. I'm looking for someone, anyone, to fill my void. And do you know what the cruelest thing is? Just looking from outside, everything seems normal. You go to work, smile in photos, fulfill your obligations. But inside, something is always on the verge of breaking. And when you finally have a moment of pleasure, relief, distraction, your body relaxes. And this is where the error occurs. The body interprets this moment as a decision, even if it is self-destruction. That's why you repeat what you say. Because relief is understood as security, and body safety is more important than health. Because of this, you are harming yourself, not because he wants it, but because your system has learned that what relieves saves, even if it later destroys. Tesla used to say that your body becomes accustomed to the frequency of relief, not the treatment, and it only changes when you deeply understand what is happening, when you stop trying to conquer yourself by force, and you start to hear what your soul has been trying to tell you for years. Now think about it. How many times have you tried to change your behavior by using willpower? How many times have you promised yourself not to repeat your actions? And yet, you repeated. Were you feeling weak? Unable to do it? Unclear? But what if I told you that the problem isn't a lack of power but an excess of misunderstood emotional overload? You don't need much control. More interior space is required. More presence. More permissions. Permission to feel without any filter. Crying without explanation. To say, I'm not okay without feeling guilty. Fall without getting destroyed. You've learned that it's wrong to have too many emotions. But the truth is that extreme emotion is a gift that is distorted by a system that doesn't know how to deal with the depth. And do you know why this has all gotten even worse? The fact is that you often start doubting your pain because there is no solid justification for it. Because compared to others, your life isn't so bad. Because other people are doing well, so why can't you? But pain doesn't need a solution. There isn't even any investigation. Just have to accept it. What if you are one of those souls who came into this world with the ability to see the invisible, feel what is hidden behind the appearances, to capture truths that haven't yet been told? So your sensitivity is not a fault. This is a sensor. Tesla believed that some bodies were more sensitive to subtle dimensions. People with inner antennas are able to perceive the invisible realm of reality, but he also knew that this sensitivity would come at a price. Because when you feel too much, the world seems so big, and you try to protect yourself by keeping distance. Emotional distance, spiritual distance. He distances himself from himself. You start rationalizing everything. A spiritualization of something that just needs to be felt, turning pain into a thesis. But it's a different method. Just more sophisticated. You say, I've already worked on this, but it didn't work. Buried. He changed his disguise. It gave philosophical meaning to something that was still hurting. And this is where your shadow grows. In the absence of presence. That place where you pretend you've solved something, when in fact you've just hidden it. I will expand on this part in my next message. And now I will continue. But what's even more delicate is something that no one has told you about. Your shadow isn't just made up of emotions you consider ugly or shameful. There's everything you need here too, but also everything you don't allow yourself to want. You have some needs that you have learned to deny. The desire to be loved deeply, the desire to be seen in its entirety, the thirst for belonging, the desire to gain recognition without having to prove one's worth. You have taught yourself that these are all signs of weakness. So he started pretending like he didn't need it. He started saying that he was fine alone. It is self-sufficient. But deep inside, he's still hungry. And what is not allowed in the light appears in the shadow, in an obsessive state, in a needy relationship, in hidden evils, in self-destruction. Because the impulse you perceive as wrong may be an unconscious attempt to satisfy a legitimate need that has been repressed. The problem was never a lack of control. It was a lack of permission. Permission required. Asking for help. Say, I want to. Be vulnerable without shame. Stop being strong all the time. Tesla believed that energy could not be destroyed, but only transformed. The same applies to your emotions too. They don't disappear. They just move, hide themselves, adapt. The energy you had suppressed is coming back, in a different way, under a different name, but it always comes back. And when it comes back, it surprises you. You're there on a normal day and suddenly you want to disappear, or scream, or else give up. You don't understand why you feel this way, but this happened because the emotion that was ignored found a new way to express itself. And then the repetition begins. You promise change, make plans, set goals, but you know deep down you're only rewiring the grounds. not actually clearing them. Real change begins when you stop trying to eliminate the impulse and start asking, what is he trying to show me? And then perhaps you will begin to see things you never had the courage to face. You have become accustomed to the pain because it is familiar to you, and this happiness frightens you because it is unknown. Pain has its own logic. He is predictable. She presents you with a scenario that you know, while the world leaves you naked, unsafe, without protection. That's why when something starts working, you sabotage it, not because you don't want to be happy, because your body is trained to associate peace with vulnerability. And for someone who has been cautious all his life, vulnerability is synonymous with danger. Tesla knew that the universe loves order, but he also acknowledged that sometimes instability is the only way to restore balance. You are at this point, and now perhaps you have understood that your inner struggle is not against your weakness and not against your impulses, but against this false idea that you have to become someone else to have the right to exist. You are already worthy, with everything that you feel, all the things you still don't understand, with all this confusion, and the more you try to fit your sensitive soul into rigid frames, the more you will be broken from within, and the more you break down, the more you lose. But there is a way to return, and it all starts with listening, to stop thinking of yourself as the enemy, to stop judging myself for every feeling. You are not unstable. You were stunned. There is no fault in this. This is very deep. It is not broken. You are not in sync with your true nature. And now that you know this, maybe real change can begin. But be careful. The mind will try to harm you. He will tell you that this is an exaggeration, that all this is nonsense, that you are just tired. She'd like to switch on autopilot again. He will try to convince you that feelings are dangerous. But don't listen to this voice as an enemy. She is also trying to protect you. But he learned all this based on fear. And now it's time to teach him a new language. The language of consciousness. Tesla said that one day people will be connected to the brain of the universe. Maybe the day will come when you will reconnect with your heart, not as any organ, but as the center of perception, like a truth sensor that the whole world is trying to suppress. And this truth is simple. You feel a lot because you are born for change. But before you can change the world, you have to learn to accept how you feel. And when you do that, you will understand that the peace you are looking for is not somewhere out there. She's waiting for you to make space for her inside. Now that you've heard it, something has changed. And maybe for the first time, you will realize that you are not failing. That place and awakening is never peaceful. So in the next step, we'll talk about what happens when you stop running and begin to face what's hidden within you. Behind every impulse, an invisible voice whispers, "Are you ready?" Because the shadow will start talking. And when she speaks, the inner world will never be the same. Have you ever noticed how some thoughts seem to come without warning, as if they were being whispered to you by someone you don't recognize, but who sounds very familiar? They appear in the early morning, in the silence between one breath and the next. They say things you swore you wouldn't believe anymore, but they still trigger a response in your body. You're not worth it. This won't work. It's not worth trying. These voices don't come out of nowhere. They come from deep within your psyche, where you store feelings you thought were too dangerous to express. But here's the thing. Whatever you truly feel, it can't destroy you. Suffering is not what you feel. That's the thing you suppress. These are the feelings you swallow, which then turn into compulsive behavior, long-term fatigue, and relationships that repeat themselves like broken mirrors. Have you ever wondered why certain situations in your life seem cliched, as if you are stuck in a rut? It seems like no matter what you do, everything comes back to the same starting point. Now imagine that your brain works like an operating system, and that every trauma, every unexperienced pain, every repressed need is a line of invisible code. This law does not manifest itself directly in everyday life. It reaches deeper, it shapes, it distorts. You think you are making a choice, but often it is simply a reaction to old commands, emotional programming that you never updated. Do you really know where your decisions come from? What if the choices you make today, from who you socialize with to how you treat your body, are all unconscious replays of unresolved pain? What if your desire to please, to give in, to keep quiet, is an echo of a childhood in which finding love meant sacrificing yourself? The hardest thing to accept is that often our pain is so deep that it becomes part of our identity. You don't say, "I am unhappy." You say, I am like this. Don't say, I'm afraid. Say, this is my way. But your path may be the answer to what they think you need to be to earn the right to be here. Tesla believed that harmony between the parts of any system was necessary for it to function effectively. But how can you find harmony if you are living in an internal war? What's the difference between what you feel and what you think you should feel? What is the difference between what you want and what you have been taught to suppress? Think about this. When was the last time you gave yourself permission to desire something without judgment? No censorship, no fear of what others will think. Do you remember? The truth is that most of your impulses are not random. These are desperate attempts to find balance. These are the parts of you that try to keep the system running, even without the necessary resources. When you feel an uncontrollable urge to run away, to disappear, to start all over again, this is not a drama. This is a clear sign that your mental system is tired and needs to be re-energized. But this is no outward escape, internal reunification. Have you ever sat in the dark, in silence, and tried to listen to what is going on inside you? No filters, no rationality, no spirituality. Just listen. This is a lot more difficult than it looks, because what you find aren't just memories. You'll find versions of yourself that are trapped in moments you've never forgotten. You will find the child who is still crying silently, the teenager who was never heard from again, the adult who is accustomed to automatism. And then perhaps you realize that there is a whole army of inner voices inside you, each of which carries within itself a request, a fear, a pain that has not yet had time to heal. You don't just live in the present, you carry the burden of those versions of yourself that are seeking validation. And until this happens, the body tries to solve this problem by any means available. With worry, with insomnia, with unspeakable pain, evils keep coming and going. Tesla said that all stored energy needs a channel to flow. If he doesn't find that channel, he explodes. Your body is exploding. This is your field saying, you need to listen to yourself. You'll have to see. You have to stop running away from yourself. But how can we listen in a world that teaches us to be silent? How would you allow yourself to feel if you were taught to be functional, productive, happy, strong? You may have to unlearn what you have learned in order to bring yourself into what really exists. Forget the idea that love depends on perfection. Stop thinking that this feeling is a weakness. Don't think that taking care of yourself is selfish. How many times have you denied yourself much-needed rest? How many times have you said, I'm fine, so you don't bother anyone? How many times have you put the needs of others above your own, even when you were a complete mess inside? And why are you doing this? This part will continue in the next post. Now I come to part 3, because somewhere you realize that love is conditional. To become worthy, one must serve. It needs to be erased to make it visible, and it becomes a silent pattern that no one notices, but which controls most of your life. You communicate by trying to anticipate others' needs before they even speak. You say yes when you want to scream no. You exhaust yourself trying to avoid conflict, and then blame yourself for the emotional exhaustion. But it's not all kindness. This is existence. You've learned to avoid rejection at all costs. Because at one point, perhaps even at the very beginning, being rejected meant becoming invisible. And being invisible is one of the most brutal forms of abandonment. The problem is that the more you try to protect yourself from rejection, the further you move away from your true identity. And with time, you forget. Forget what you like. Forget your desires. Forget what it is like to live without the fear of upsetting others. Do you feel it? This void that no one can fill? Does your fatigue not go away even after rest? That inner silence that screams even when everything seems quiet? This is your energy field warning you that you live too much in the outer world and too little in the inner world. Tesla understood that magnetic fields affected everything around him, even his thoughts. And your mind, coming into conflict with your heart, creates internal areas of tension that affect your entire functioning. You are trying to bring order into your life, but everything inside is out of harmony. You say everything is fine, and you cry inside. You say you're strong, but before you sleep, you quietly fall apart. You say you've been through all of this, but you still catch your breath whenever the topic comes up. And what's the worst part? You start doubting yourself. I think he is unstable, exaggerated, too much drama. But where is the drama? In yourself, or in the burden you carry without sharing it with anyone? Ask yourself, How many truths are there that you haven't yet found the courage to speak? How many basts did you swallow? How many times have you sacrificed yourself to keep someone close to you? You have a right to have your voice heard, to change your mind, to be unavailable. Put yourself first with no excuses. But maybe you have forgotten about it, because in the name of emotional survival you have transformed into a character, and now, any attempt to return to their truth seems dangerous. Not this. It's liberating. But how can you free yourself from something that has become a part of you? This question can be seen everywhere, because you're not trying to change a habit. You are trying to change the lifestyle that you have been taught, and this requires courage. Tesla believed that the future of humanity lay in the hands of those who understood invisible energy. And this energy starts with you. The way you treat yourself, how you react to yourself. Do you know how to separate your own voice from the voice that has been installed inside you? Do you really believe you deserve the life you dream of? Or have you just learned to make do with what you have? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary, because if you don't, life will continue to repeat the same lessons with new forms, and each time it will hurt more and more. Good news? You start listening, and when you listen, you change. Not all at once, but layer by layer. Maybe you can say no today. Maybe tomorrow I can relax without feeling guilty. Then maybe you will be able to desire without judging yourself. And slowly, you begin to remember who you always were. Under fear, under the pain, under the masks. And then the shadow is no longer an enemy. It becomes a path, because all those feelings you've been avoiding the most are the ones that can set you free. In the next step, we'll enter even more mysterious territory, an invisible emotional legacy that you carry in your body, but it didn't originate with you. Are you ready for this? Because the next layer isn't just about your story. She is of your blood, to your family, and he's waiting to break out. See you at the next intersection. Have you ever felt like you carry around something inside you that doesn't belong to you, but lives inside you, as if it has always been part of your history? Does your weight not show up at birth, but stay with you like your ancestors? Maybe you could never explain it, but this feeling has a name, and its origins are much more solid than they appear. Modern science is just beginning to understand what spiritual traditions have known for millennia. Emotions can be passed down from generation to generation. Epigenetic research shows that traumas experienced by your ancestors leave traces in your DNA. You have more than just the physical characteristics of your grandparents. You also carry emotional pieces of pain that they don't understand. Researchers at Emory University in the US conducted a study on rats that were repeatedly exposed to a particular odor, while also being given mild electric shocks. Several generations later, even though they had never been directly exposed to the shock, the descendants of these mice responded fearfully to the same smell, never got hurt. Now change the scent of abandonment. Instead of shock, embrace silence. Replace this experiment with human generations living under conditions of war, loss, oppression, deprivation. And note, perhaps you are reliving memories of your family today and don't even know about it. Have you tried to change, gone to therapy, meditated, read books, but there is still something that stops you? Does it feel like there's some invisible agreement that you don't remember signing? Does it feel like there's a silent barrier between who you want to be and who you can become? This is called unconscious devotion. It's a sort of contract you make with the pain of your clan, not on purpose, but for love. Because when the soul of a child realizes that his parents or grandparents are in pain, it tries to alleviate their suffering, try to compensate for it, try to maintain your balance. And often it does so unconsciously, by reproducing the patterns of pain. You start living a sad life like your mother always lived. He starts to remain quiet, just like his father always remained quiet. He begins to fail, just like his grandfather, whom no one ever saw, not by the will of fate, but with connection. The suffering you endure over and over again is not a punishment. This is a link. This is why change is so painful. Because when you start doing something different, you get this feeling inside that you are betraying a part of your family. You say no and feel guilty. You leave and you feel like you're leaving someone behind. You choose yourself, and there's something inside of you that feels betrayed. But this is not treason. This is a pause. You break the cycle that has taught you that love and pain are inseparable. And at first glance, this seems wrong. Have you ever felt like this? Is it as if you are breaking a sacred covenant by taking care of yourself? Because maybe the compromise you have made is to maintain the suffering. You probably felt that being loyal to your family meant keeping something inside of you that they could never give up. But you aren't here to repeat yourself. You are here to excel. And this requires courage. The courage to admit that some of your pain was not born within you, but it lives in you. And wait for someone who has the strength to look the truth in the eye and change it. Have you ever heard stories from your family that had an impact on you, even if you didn't experience them yourself? The grandmother who was forced to remain silent, an uncle who never recovered, a mother who learned to smile without crying. These stories stay within your circle, and often they repeat themselves until someone says, "It ends with me." This is why you may feel intense pain even without a serious injury. This is why, even if you are an alert person, you find yourself paralyzed in certain situations. Because there are codes inside you that were recorded before you were even born, and now you have a chance to rewrite it. Tesla believed that everything in the universe was energy in motion, and that the past, present, and future are interconnected through a vibrational field. As part of this field, you are a transmitter, but you can also be a transformer. But to do this, you must break the pattern of invisibility. You have to stop pretending that everything is okay. You need the courage to look back, not to imprison yourself in the past, but to break free from it. And it all starts with a simple gesture. If you ask yourself honestly, whose pain am I really carrying? Is she yours? Or is it your mother who didn't get time to realize it? Is this yours? Or your father, who was taught from childhood to suppress his emotions? Sometimes the sadness that comes over you is not a sign of failure. This is an agenda. Your body is the area where all of this manifests. Undue anxiety, difficulty in breathing, tightness in the throat, constant voltage. All of these signs could be records of your ancestors trying to reach you. So, you have two options: suppress it and leave everything as it is, or open up and allow something new to emerge. And yes, it is scary, because doing this makes you feel lonely, because no one around you is walking on this path. Nobody talks about it, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. This means you will go first. You are that turning point. You are a crack in the wall of the system. You are likely to embark on a new emotional journey, and it has a price. You will lose the bond. Will put a question mark on the memories. This will be misinterpreted. You will find yourself feeling uncomfortable, but you will start breathing like before. You will wake up with a lightness you have never experienced before. You'll gain access to feelings that were always there, but hidden. And then you will understand that pain you wanted to avoid so much. That was the key, not the end. This was the beginning of his independence. We'll look at this in more detail in the next section. The collapse of the self-image you built up to survive, and in rebuilding the true self. Are you ready to lose what was never yours and gain who you've always been? See you in the next step. You are addicted to the image, a version of yourself that over time becomes no longer a choice, but a means of survival. You have learned to be functional, be strong, be kind, wise, balanced, calm, and adaptable. But you know deep down that something isn't right with this version. You feel it. Every time you look in the mirror, you get a strange feeling that you are playing a role. You feel all the time that you have become so grown up, but deep inside, you are tired of holding it all inside. You realize it when you automatically smile, but deep inside, you wish someone would notice that there is something wrong with you. This image you have created was not born by chance. It is shaped by the expectations that have been around you since childhood. You realize that behaving a certain way makes you accepted. By pleasing others, he got love. By remaining silent, he avoided conflicts. By concealing his desires, he maintained order. And then he fainted. Every small choice you make yourself happy, every small sacrifice you make for yourself, becomes the cornerstone in building your personality. And now you live inside it, taken, limited, rash. But the worst thing is the lack of masks. He forgets that it is a mask. Have you ever wondered what you would be if you could exist without the need to constantly maintain balance? Who would you be if you didn't have to justify every feeling? What if you didn't always have to be understanding, polite, pleasant, productive? You might think you'll be rejected, or I will lose everything, or that no one can tolerate your true self. And maybe this fear is not yours alone. It has probably been inherited, acquired, and strengthened over the years. But you haven't realized yet that in trying to maintain the image, you are moving further away from your essence. And the further you distance yourself from yourself, the more disconnected you will feel from life. The shutdown does not initiate from the outside world. It all starts when you get to choose who you are, and you will be accepted, and choose to be accepted. Again, and once again, you became someone I didn't want to bother. I didn't want to disturb anyone. I didn't want to be a burden. And, ironically, he became a burden to himself. How many times have you felt guilty for saying no? How many times have you stopped yourself from doing something because you were afraid of disappointing someone? How many times have you canceled yourself to avoid criticism? You call it maturity, but deep inside you know it's fear. You have been conditioned to believe that your existence has value only if you help someone, solve something, benefit someone, and so resting seems like a waste of time. Feeling of weakness. Saying I want feels selfish. What if this doesn't happen? What if the greatest act of love you could do for yourself and everyone around you was to finally abandon conformity? This decision, while it may seem liberating, is painful because it means loss of image. This means stepping out of character, and it's scary. You don't know who will be on the other side. There is no guarantee of this. He doesn't know if he will still find love, and this is where the deepest wound lies. Doubting whether you deserve to be loved, just because you're you. No mask, without any effort, no image. Tesla said that each person is a transmitter and a receiver. We emit frequencies according to our internal state. Now think about it. What do you broadcast when you live to maintain your image? What do you want to achieve by showing only excerpts of yourself? The answer lies in the quiet loneliness you feel even when you are surrounded by people. Because the love you get while playing never reaches your core. He pauses at the image. And then you wonder why you feel so alone despite being so accepted. Is it true? You are surrounded, but in reality, no one sees you. Because you don't even allow yourself to be seen. This part of your story will only change if you start breaking mirrors. When you look at the image and say, "Thank you for protecting me, but now I have to live." And this is where the rebuilding begins. No new people, but about your truth. And restoration requires destruction. You will lose things. People will go away. The circles will change. Mobility would collapse. And yes, it will hurt. But this will free up space. Space to breathe. A place to exist without needing any explanation. You will find that you can love and be loved without having to pretend. You will find that there are people who can see your soul, but first you have to allow it to emerge. You are afraid that you will not be accepted. But the truth is that he is already living without any discrimination, because it is the paper that is accepted, not you. What if life turns out to be much simpler than you expected? What if you didn't have to prove anything, fix anyone, or carry anyone on your shoulders? You are allowed to make changes, to fail, feel, start over, and you have the right to be yourself, even if the world around you doesn't understand you. In the next section, we'll look at the most sensitive cores, reprogramming your emotional body. Because before you can feel free, you have to teach your body to live without being on alert. See you there, when you're ready to live instead of survive. You've spent a lifetime trying to fix what you thought was broken. You've tried to control your impulses, numb your feelings, suppress your emotions, hide your pain. You've been taught to act, not feel. Taught to innovate, not listen. Taught to look good even when everything inside you screams for peace. But now something has changed. With every word, every silent revelation, you realized that what seemed like a weakness was actually the starting point of your truth. That the shadow you had been trying to escape for so long wasn't a monster. It was a part of your soul that just needed to be heard. That you no longer needed to beat yourself up, but to embrace yourself. And this changes everything. Because now, there is no turning back. Now you know, you feel, you have seen, and what you have seen cannot be denied now. But knowledge alone does not bring about change. Feeling alone doesn't solve anything. Real change happens when you take action, when you begin to make small, conscious daily decisions that bring your life into alignment with what you now recognize as the truth. You may be wondering, what do I do now? How to make all this practical, usable, realistic? The answer starts with a plan, simple, direct, emotionally committed to your truth. And this plan has only 3 pillars: daily acceptance of your humanity, creating rituals that support your new frequency, a conscious choice that defines not your image, but your path. Don't you think this is a lot? But this is a revolution. Let us move on to the first column. You've spent years trying to be perfect. Now be realistic. Take a minute of silence every day and ask yourself the following questions. What am I feeling now? No filter, no fear, no desire to fix anything. Allow yourself to feel. Name what you are feeling. If it is anger, say it is anger. If it is emptiness, say it is emptiness. Emotional truth is the starting point of energy healing, because any energy you ignore turns into stress, and the accumulated stress disorganizes your emotional, spiritual, and physical life. Second pillar, create rituals that support your energy. You don't need a perfect routine. You need rituals that remind you who you are. Take 5 minutes every day to breathe consciously, bathing in silence. A song that takes you back to yourself. Write down what you feel. Do nothing for a moment and just be present. The world will tell you it's a waste of time, but this world is also sick. You have to choose whether you want to heal or remain part of the collective pain. Create a sacred space within yourself. Third pillar, make choices that support your soul, not your image. Every time you have to choose between pleasing others and living your truth, choose your truth, even if it hurts, even if it bothers you, even if you have to walk just a little bit. You have not come here so that everyone understands you. You are here to remember who you are and make a living from that. Choose friendships that respect you, not tolerate you. Choose work that nourishes you, not exhausts you. Choose conversations that expand you, not narrow you down. And most of all, make a choice. Every day, even when the whole world is screaming to the contrary. But what if he fails? And when will you forget all this and start repeating the old things? Welcome. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be honest. You will fall. You will repeat yourself. You will get lost. But now you know how to get back. Don't judge yourself. Let's meet again. True awakening is non-linear. This is a spiral. You will have to repeat the same text more than once. But with each cycle, you will become more aware, more powerful, more complete. Now close your eyes for a moment. Deep breath. And feel what is right now, without trying to change, without running away, without interpreting. Just feel. This presence that you touch, it is you. And this contact with oneself is more sacred than any external ritual. This is the beginning of true spirituality, living within yourself. And if you have reached this point, it means that something inside you has started to awaken. It might still be a whisper. It may still exist in fragments, but this is just the beginning. And if you want to turn this into a trip, remember, you don't have to do everything at once. You just need to take the next step. So now, with all my love and respect for your story, your time, your presence, I invite you to get started. Not tomorrow, not when everything is perfect. Now, start with a gesture, in the same breath, with the possibility of election. And if this video makes sense to you, if it touched you in any way, leave it in the recording, even if anonymously. Write in the comments what impressed you the most. Share your doubts, your shadows, your stories if you wish. You are not alone. Subscribe to the channel to continue this journey with us. Please like this video so that this message can reach more and more silent people. And if you can, share it with someone who is ready to be awakened to what you think. We are not talking about perfection here. We are talking about courage, about humanity, about the return. And I will stay here. At the next intersection, new era, or in the next rebirth, you choose. Now take a breath, close your eyes, and ask yourself, if I stop running away from myself right now, what will be born inside me? See you there.